This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. Here are 10 to 12 of the stories we're following today. I'll start with one that was a PS today in our LinkedIn review of current business issues today. And again, Scott Becker. Always feel free to leave comments here at LinkedIn or to text me at 773-766-5322. So the first story we'll talk about today is Walgreens is down now 7.5% today. They've cut their dividend. You know, this business transformation issue of trying to transform from a retail pharmacy into a provider to is extremely hard to do. They've already had a big hiccup in their transaction with VillageMD. They've had to close some of the clinics that VillageMD was staffing. Just the sheer supply demand of primary care versus the needs in our country make it very hard to staff up on some of these areas that people want to staff up on. So that's sort of a pre-script to our discussion. And here's 10 other points for watching. First, stocks point slightly up to flat today after a couple negative days in the markets. Bloomberg writes an article today, stocks and bonds steady after bruising sell-off. Second, there's a lot of early discussion this year on whether the Fed will go slow in reducing rates. Two headlines raise this issue this morning. Yahoo Finance says Fed made a mistake signaling rate cuts to markets, says one strategist, meaning that the Fed sort of seen the last year to be cutting rates, and people got very excited about that, and that drove the market up, but not to be happening so fast. A second article that weighs in this too, also in Yahoo Finance, labor market is still hot, economist explains. And that's a key issue because that if the labor market softens, then the Fed will be more aggressive about reducing rates, which will be a boon for the actual stock market. Third, the Fed debt has now reached $34 trillion, and the government is set for another near-term fight over expanding the deficit limit. Fourth, I think this is interesting. Warren Buffett's six largest holdings, and so Warren Buffett's been so successful, and Berkshire Hathaway's been so successful that people look at these things all the time. But here's the six biggest holdings, and we'll do a separate podcast on this. Apple, Bank of America, American Express, Coca-Cola, Chevron, Occidental Petroleum. Warren Buffett famously says that most investors are better off just buying low-cost index funds. And I'm a big fan of that, a big proponent of it. It's what I largely do. We've got some other holdings, but largely index funds. But you wouldn't do poorly generally investing with whatever Warren Buffett invests in. And that's why people follow his stuff so closely as to what he's invested in. Again, the big six, Apple, B of A, American Express, Coca-Cola, Chevron, and Occidental Petroleum. Fifth story we're following today is Becker's Healthcare Annual Meeting, April 8th to 11th. Keynotes, George Bush, Martha Stewart, Michael Strahan, Bill Belichick. Contact Jessica Cole for more information, the CEO, President of Becker's Healthcare. Sixth, Bitcoin is right around 43,000. We'll see what happens there. Seventh, Tesla dropped about 4% yesterday. Seems to have a slight recovery today. Eighth, after 3.5 years, I succumbed and finally bought the new iPhone. Some hiccups with the transfer, but my God, transferring from one phone to another, so much easier than it was a decade or two ago where it used to basically put you out of business for a couple days. Much better today. Ninth, Bloomberg reports Apple hit with a second downgrade this week as iPhone worries grow, i.e. how many iPhones will be sold. We tried to do our part yesterday, but still lots of challenges there. 10th, the Becker's Healthcare Becker Private Equity Podcast had an absolute record month last month. Some of our most listened to guests are people from RSM, the great consulting and accounting firm, and McGuire Woods, the great law firm. Obviously, a caveat or a disclosure. I'm a partner still at McGuire Woods, great firm. Those are 10 of the stories we're following today. Also, working on a second edition of the book, Blocking and Tackling 60 Keys to Building a Business and Managing Your Money. Very excited for that. It also will be on publishing on the Apple as well as on Amazon, so fantastic and excited about that. And then we talked about already the Walgreens story, which even though it's down 36% over the last year and 6% year to date, we have great hopes that the new CEO really has a great focus on the business and will ultimately make that a winner. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. If you listen all the way through, please text me at 773-766-5322. If you're the first person to text me, we'll send you a $100 Amazon gift certificate. Thank you so much for listening.